Hey, welcome to today's panel. It's going to have a debate about what makes a good community. And a lot of you guys here are a part of many projects. You are a part of many communities, both inside Web3, outside Web3. And that question about what makes a good community, and more so, what makes a good community in Web3 is something that really should be discussed, as when you want to join a project, oftentimes the main value proposition they're going to be offered is the community, is the networking, and it's the relationships you're going to establish with people inside of that tribe who all share a common goal, a common set of beliefs. So the question is what makes a good community? Today we have 3 amazing panelists on stage, and we are also going to be bringing in members from the audience. It's a very interactive conversation. You have cards, they're gonna be given out. You're able to vote yes or no to questions we're gonna pose. You can raise your hand and we'll bring people up on stage as well to interact with it. It's going to be a really fun, interactive 55 minutes. So let's introduce the panelists. First off, we got Paca. Would you like to introduce yourself? Just give us a little bit about you.
Check. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Paca. I'm one of the co-founders of FangGang, these PFPs you see back here. I'm actually here from Lisbon. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because community is one of the things that drives us at FangGang.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you up here. Next up, we got, I'm trying to think how to introduce you here.
I'll help you there. My name is Niamh. Irish, very difficult language, I agree. Everyone will know me as Irish NFT gal. As I go by, I work for many different Web3 brands, Crypto Skulls being one, V1 Punks being another, and I am here to definitely be on the good side of community building, the importance of marketing when it comes to new technology, and we will delve right into it.
Thank you. Irish NFT guy, I wasn't sure how to approach that. I've got to be with you at a bunch of events now, so it's a pleasure to reunite here in Lisbon. Next up, we got Junshi. Would you like to give a few words about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Junshi. I'm the artist and co-founder of FangGang together with Paca. I'm from the Netherlands. Been doing crypto NFTs for 2+ years now, and I'm excited to have this talk.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a diverse background that we have here, people coming from different perspectives. I myself come from the marketing world, and coming into Web3, it's a very interesting dynamic. I have this idea that buying into a community doesn't make you a member. If you're not a good person and you join into a community because you buy into it, it doesn't make you now a member of that tribe, right? You have to believe in each other. You have to support each other. You have to be a real community. And the big question that I've always had, and I'll ask everyone, and it's the first question I want to pose to the panelists and then to the audience is, does floor price dictate your decisions? Will you join a community purely based on the value of it? Will you join it if it's low or high?
For me, floor price is just one aspect of the community. I don't think it dictates what you do on a daily basis. And as a founder, if we followed what we do by our floor price, we would have stopped a long time ago because we've been going for a while. We started in August 2021. And we never really took off and became one of the major NFT projects, but we kept on doing things. We kept on building things for our community. We're still releasing stuff on a daily basis. So I don't think floor price defines what a community is. It might help bring more people in. So, a lot of people buy in when floor price is rising, right? And there's that FOMO feeling of that. But then again, community is made by those who stick around, those who follow the community principles, connect with people. I see a few Fangsters in the audience, so I'm pretty sure if there was no community, they wouldn't be here, and they're not here for the floor price. So for me, floor price is just an aspect of it. It's nice to have a good floor price. It's nice to have your assets increase in value, but at the end of the day, it's all the rest you do that defines the quality of the community and why people stick around.
That's a really great perspective. I would love to throw it over to any of the panelists.
Yeah, I think if you have a really high floor price, it does I'm going to agree to disagree a little bit, because if you have a really high floor price, you're going to be trending on major marketplaces. You're going to be trending on homepage, and it definitely does encourage more eyes to your project. But how does that happen? In my opinion, it doesn't happen just from organic growth. Some of the major brands that we know today, and I'm not going to name any, but some of the major brands have put a lot of marketing budget behind these or have paid massive influencers. It's very difficult to just let the community run your project for you, but I think that they are the ones that are going to last long term. The ones that are actually a little bit quiet, I think, will always be there, whereas those that have major floor prices and then drop all of a sudden, the community automatically hate the founders. They hate that they've lost hundreds of thousands because you can't sustain it long term. It's impossible. Your marketing budget runs out. So the organic building is definitely what I'm all for. And it's very difficult, yes, to base that off floor prices. But some of the major influencers out there that have launched their own NFT projects are called now that they rugged their own project. They haven't, but it's because that you have lost your own financial budget or lost money towards it. So it's very tricky to keep everyone happy, and you never will. But I think if you stay quiet, it's actually better in the long term for everyone.
I love that we have two different perspectives now on this issue, and I'm sure that everybody here has their own thoughts on what makes a good community based on floor price, because it always is the question is, what would you do if your project you paid tens of thousands of dollars to get into, such as any of the quote unquote blue chip projects that then dropped down 90% like most of them did. You bought a mutant ape at $50,000 and it's worth under 10. Do you still have that same passion for it? Is the community desire still the same?
Yeah, I mostly agree with what was being said on here. I also think that it's different per person's. Some people are in it for the money, obviously. Some people are in it for building a community together with the project itself and building for the future. I do think that a higher floor price usually makes a project more attractive to most people, but it doesn't mean that the lower floor price projects don't try just as hard or even more so just to get to that level. So yeah, all in all, I think it really differs per person what you're into NFTs for.
Love it. Yeah, I want to ask the audience, you guys should have your cards. Also, you can scan the QR code up here and join into the Discord chat. Your messages will pop up on there. We can read them out there. You can raise your hand as well to get involved at any point. I want to ask, what does the floor price drops, will that affect your decision to remain in a community? You can just raise yes or no. It's interesting. I have a lot of people saying no, but I really wonder whether when that time comes where you actually spend, the tens of thousands of dollars and it drops, if you have that same perspective. And I'd be really curious to see people who maintain that, because it's really interesting. Moving on, I want to ask another question. When you're trying to evaluate what makes a good community, what metrics would you say are most important to follow?
I think for me, there's two super important things. One of them is the content creation that happens around the brand you're building. And a good community builds content on its own. It doesn't need its founders to share the assets, share contests to make them do something. So if you're involved in a community, if you feel like what the founders are doing, what the brand is doing, people get involved and post stuff, they create stuff, they call other people into the community. So the level of involvement of the community is one of the things that I appreciate the most. And another thing for me is the support you show by just using a PFP. I know it sounds simple, but we have a lot of NFT assets, right? We all of us here have a lot of assets in our wallet, but you have to choose one as your identity, right? So when you choose that collection, that specific NFT, that picture, it means that you're super involved and committed with that community. So for me, those two aspects are important and interesting.
I want to touch on that second point you said about using a PFP. We're all familiar with, your NFT inspect. I'd say we all. I make assumptions. Is anybody here not familiar with NFT inspect? Awesome. All right. So this idea of showcasing your PFP, We all know about how many bots are on Twitter, and that's something that can be heavily botted, right? To have PFPs of a certain brand. People own a lot of them. They'll make a bunch of accounts with it in order to move around that. So when you have a metric that's easily manipulable, is that something we can still hold accountable?
Well, it's easy to identify bots, in my opinion, right? Because the way they behave is standard. It's you see bots on Twitter and you know they're bots, right? But for me, the fact that you're using a PFP and you can identify with it, you can see the people that are genuinely posting about what their assets, the community, the brand they're working for their PFP. So I think bots are a problem. I think we're not there yet. We need to fix that because there's a lot of rugs and there's a lot of scams going on Twitter. Just because you see a mutant PFP or an APFP or one of those major collections and you trust that person, and then that's the person that's replying to your tweets every day in a automatic way. So you know that those are bots, but people coming into the space that are not familiar with it, they see a popular PFP and they see someone posting something about a new project or a new mint or whatever, and you trust that PFP. But that's just because it's an assumption. It's nothing set in stone, right? So I think it's something we need to solve, but at the same time, I think using a PFP to show your support to a brand, to a collection, to an artist, is still a valid way to do it, to be active and to show what you stand by.
Love it. I want to ask you, Niamh, how would you say are the best metrics to judge a good community and the overall health?
Yeah, one of the first things I would do, why I would even join a community in the first place, no matter what the floor price is, no matter what price tag that you can put on it, is I would look at the team. I think relationships, if you already know someone, it's obviously a very good sign. A red flag for me would be if everyone in the team was anonymous. I personally wouldn't collect from an artist. Let's not talk about projects for a minute, but from an artist's point of view, I personally wouldn't, unless I knew that it was a word of mouth, unless it was a lot of hype going around. But personally, from like a one-of-one artist, I wouldn't purchase from unless I knew that I could physically meet them and have a good relationship with them. I think a lot of people would be against that statement here. I would say a lot of people would say the anonymous artists and anonymous projects could possibly make them the most money in the short term. But I think for the long term, someone that is not well known that will become successful is because it might be thanks to you because you were their first collector or their first encouragement to help bring them along. And that's what I do a lot. I try and point out people that I can see have a really good talent, but their social media mightn't be a very good presence. Because that doesn't necessarily mean anything right now. We're still so new that in 10 years, 20 years, they could overdo everyone else. And that's what I like to see, personal growth, and making sure that they're helping to onboard other people, for me, is the best sign possible. So if you are producing educational content, I will automatically love you. So I know personally you, because you do the same thing as myself. We love to help educate other people. So if you're launching an NFT project, I would keep an eye on that, because I think that a lot of people really appreciate that, and I think that not enough people are doing that in the NFT space. So that to me is what makes a good community.
Personal relationships and having that individual one-on-one connection. I see some questions in the Discord. TNL, if I'm not butchering the name, would you like to ask your question? If you're here. Well, the question is, to your opinion, what would be the biggest expectations from people when they join a community, a project, sense of belonging, rewards, utilities? So that gets into another interesting question. I mean, I want to throw it over to you. I would love to, if you're able to come up on stage. We got anyone here? Yeah, can we get a mic here? He's not here. Anyone come up? Yeah, come up.
Let's give a round of applause.
Hi everyone, I'm from LVMH, from Cloudy Bay. You can see our exhibition here. And my name is Tatiana. I'm the CDO for the wine division of LVMH.
Yeah, so we'd love you to ask your question and explain a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty new in the Web3 ecosystem, and we are currently working on a project, but I'm very curious to see what would be the biggest expectations when someone is joining a community, a project? Is it rewards, sense of belonging, utilities? What are you expecting?
Yeah, I can answer this first. I think you would expect good engagement. So say if you tweet out the profile picture or you are tagging the project, I think the least thing that you can do in return is like retweet it out, share it with the community. You need to be quite active, and that's why you need good community managers. You need, whether that's people from the community that are keeping an eye out on the project or people that are paid to do the job. Ideally, you need both, but I would say to make sure that you're getting better engagement, you're getting more followers, you're getting more eyes on you as an artist and people that are interested in how you found out about the project because maybe your background is in crypto or your background. So I would say definitely good engagement would be kind of like the least expectation that you would get in return.
Yeah, and I think biggest expectation would be that people could join a project that is serious about its future. So not one that has bad intentions or doesn't intend to build for longer than 1 year. Like, I think for a lot of people it's important that the team has a long-term vision. So they know what they're getting into, they know what to expect at later points in the life of the project itself. So yeah, I think that's a huge point for people. Yeah.
I want to ask a question by to the audience. Do you have expectations when you join a community, or have you ever joined a community just for the sake of you like the art, you like the project? Have you ever joined one purely yes or no, just without any expectations? Nice. I think that's really bullish. What are your expectations when you join a project?
I think it's really the sense of belonging. To be very proud to be part of a community, to live some experiences, and to go digital. Not only online communities, but to meet people with common values. I think that would be my biggest expectations. But maybe that's the most difficult to achieve. I don't know.
I think we achieved it right here today. I mean, we're sitting here. A lot of us came from all over the world. I myself traveled, hundreds of miles to fly over here to come to in the city. My first time in Portugal, came to Lisbon to meet a whole bunch of people here who are gathered together because we care about the future of technology in the world. And whether it's from art, it's from music, it's from the marketing, the community building side, development, wherever you came from, you share a common belief. And this, to me, is more of a community than any project you could have, because we came together here to unite, to share beliefs, and get to know each other. So, I'm bullish on us. I want to thank you for coming on stage. It's a really great question.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Let's give her a round of applause. What makes you join a community? That's a good question here. Between text, voice, and video, what are your favorite ways to communicate with your community and why? Fred, you're from Superspaces. If you would like to come up here. If you guys don't know Superspaces, you should. Hop on up.
What's up, GM, everyone?
GM, tell us a little bit about you and what your question.
What's up? If I'd been told that this morning I'd sit in a ring with Moishe and others, I'd have been very happy. I'm Fred, founder and CEO of Superspaces. Awesome to be here, really privileged. My question, between text, voice, and video, what are your favorite ways to connect with your community? The reason I'm asking, I'm kind of in this constant search of what is the best way to become closer within a community. And obviously, if you know a bit about Superspaces or not, we help you basically know everything you need to know about your Twitter Spaces game and how to improve it, right? So we help you turn your first-time audience members into your forever community members through data analytics and engagement campaigns. And so, yeah, I mean, the reason I'm asking is I think voice is really something special because you can connect at scale with people and remain pseudonymity. And it's really something that builds trust like no other, I think.
I love that. I want to ask you, when you hear that, right, you go on Twitter Spaces, a lot of communities, they have their AMAs on Discord. You're going to have your Twitter Spaces. There's sometimes, if you were back in the Telegram days of the text Q&A formats before they got the audio, you have a certain distance that exists there when you're looking at PFPs that's different than today. We're gathered here, and you can see us face to face, and you have the micro expressions, and you get to communicate non-verbally. And there's a lot of nuance that's missed over Twitter Spaces, and I've seen a lot of disagreements happen as a result of that. Communities have had communication issues where people weren't able to effectively communicate due to not being able to see each other, and they miss out on the subtext of conversations. So what would be the best platform for you to communicate with a community and cultivate the best following?
Well, this is a pretty standard answer, but I think all three of them are needed, actually. So I think chat is the most accessible and easy way to enter a community, right? You don't enter straight into Twitter Spaces and start sharing your, I mean, there's people that do that, but for shy people, and a lot of people on NFTs, on Web3, are shy. That's why they start hiding behind PFPs at first, right? So I think that's one way that you can't avoid and will always help more people on the onboarding process. But then to connect on a more personal level, and when you start engaging with the community more and more, I think Twitter Spaces and voice chat is super important. For instance, at FangGang, we host a weekly community spaces called the Fangout. And it's not like a place where you come to ask questions to the founders. It's not a place to ask questions about the project. Of course, it can happen, but it's a place for the community to hang out. And we usually invite a different community every week just to be there with us, to share their vision, what they're building. And that's a way to merge communities, get more people together, get more people involved. And for me, voice on that level is super important. Video, on the other hand, I think it's way more personal, and it happens usually when you're trying to establish a more professional or maybe a business connection, and that's where video is needed. You need to see the other person. You need to see how committed they are to what they're building. The doxing factor is also important, right? So all three of them are important to build a community, but it depends on what's your end goal. If it's just to join a community, share a bit more about what you're doing, I think chat is the right way to do it. Voice when you're part of it, when you're trying to learn more, when you're trying to engage on a more personal level. And if you go to a business relationship level, then video is super important for me.
I'd say, first of all, don't forget anyone with accessibility issues. My background is in UX design and marketing, and it's something that's definitely drilled into a lot of people before designing a product, is to make sure, for instance, I host a lot of Twitter Spaces, and I've obviously invited so many different speakers, many of which that are slightly deaf or, you know, can't actually, like, they're too shy, but a lot of people that just would never even attempt, just in case they maybe can't understand, or let's say they have language barriers. So we do have to use all forms, and there's never one form that will suit everyone. Usually I think recorded video is the best. We're really thankful today that all of these talks are recorded, and that's something that's perfect for content creators like myself, Moishe, like everyone that uses it. But you do have to use all forms. There's never going to be one form that suits everyone. Everyone has different accessibility issues. And today, I'm sure there's a lot of people here that, you know, would have. So we have to agree to use Telegram. We have to agree to use Discord. But I do hope in the future there will be one that suits. I just think we're very far away from that. And there will be something that hasn't even been built right now that will be what we will be using in the future. So we have to keep all our ears open and make sure that each person in the team is specialized in a different area. So we have to hire people that have different skills. We can't hire people that all have the same skills. You need to hire someone that knows different than what you know. And you have to kind of take a step back, I think, before even hiring someone to make sure that it's not just what you want to hear, it's what your community wants to hear.
I love that. You know, and you speak about what platform, that one platform people can go to, the best way to do that. A question for the audience, are any of you part of a Discord server for NFTs? I think there would be quite a lot of us in here. So, you know, that's a question, you know, for Discord. Is Discord essential to having an NFT project?
At this point, I think so, yeah, because there's no better alternative for quick chats, long-form content. So at this point, I think it's essential to have. I'm sure that at some point there will be a better option for it, maybe where you can actually connect your wallet, because Discord doesn't allow that. It never will. So yeah, I think it's essential at this moment. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a big controversial one. You know, with a very centralized platform, but it's kind of it's the hub, right? To make a big community, I think one of the core elements is to be able to communicate with each other, right? And as Discord being that central hub, which has that text, it has that voice, it has that video, you could, you know, upload and stream. You can you can stream to it, and there's a lot of unique features you can do on there with bots. It became kind of this hub. That's where, you know, people go to have your community, because you don't get an opportunity to sit around here and look at real people and have a real conversation and go to a conference all the time, but you want to still engage with people, and you're limited on every other platform. So Discord being that alternative is it's an interesting one for sure.
We have Avi, and he just said Discord sucks, and he's getting a lot of reactions. He's in the audience here. Get up.
Yeah, thank you for coming up here. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, bro.
Let's give Fred a round of applause. Thank you for coming up here, man. UX is not the best. Yeah, I think, you know, it's funny. I love watching people coming up. I love watching people talk about Twitter on Twitter, talk about Discord on Discord. You know, to speak about a platform on that platform is it's quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, the current chat platforms are not outdated. Yeah, what do you think what is your alternative then to Discord?
Good morning, everyone. Regarding Discord, so I don't know, I see that quite a few people are agreeing with me. I think Discord sucks.
Let's ask, you know, do you think Discord sucks?
I don't see a red one yet. Oh, whoa, one red, there we are. Two, yeah. It's a little bit of support here. Oh no, so there's just one red at the back there. So maybe we'll call him up next and ask him why he likes it. But look, I'm more of a simple guy. I'm not that. I used to think I was tech savvy, but I have now kids, and they're teaching me that I don't know anything about technology. But it's one of the most difficult platforms to use. I literally, like, two projects that I work with that forced me to use Discord to interact with them, and every literally 2 days, like Moishe's like, "Did you see your Discord message?" I'm like, "Which channel? Which thingy? What do you call these things on the left? Are these like users? What they call? Anyone know what these? Here, everyone can see. What are these? Groups?
These are servers.
Servers. There, it's servers, and these are channels. Now there's channels that you're in, and there's channels that are private. Apparently, that not everyone. And like, so yeah. So on a personal note, so regarding communities and communicating, I'll be as quick as I can. It's very important, and you have to figure a way out to find your way of speaking to people. I personally love WhatsApp. Groups, I think, are the best way, and I think anyone who adapts that kind of format will. I know a lot of people don't like giving out their WhatsApp number when they join projects, so it's a difficult situation, but I personally think WhatsApp groups are that's what I find the best way to communicate with a large group of people. I think anyone who develops that kind of format within some kind of social media platform, I think will be succeeding. But even Discord, if Discord would just make it, I don't know, just rethink their entire graphics and software of how it's displayed, I think people would enjoy it. It's just so difficult. There's just so much with purposeless stuff to use. So I do think it's important to communicate, but yeah, I do sound old. I do think it's important to communicate, but for me personally, Discord sucks. So yeah, and I got a lot of support, so that's good.
Here's my question. How can the community management be improved on these platforms to ensure more meaningful, interactive communication, I guess?
For Discord specifically? Or
For communities in general, what is the
Right.
best way for them to improve communication, to make it easier? Because you gotta realize, again, we all have different backgrounds, very diverse. Like I said, everyone gathered here today comes from different countries, different continents, and we have a common belief, and we interact in different time zones, and we have different backgrounds. So for someone who lived on Slack their whole life, Discord doesn't seem all that different. You don't have some features, but you have other features. If you existed in WhatsApp, and then Telegram might be an easier solution for you. It's about what you are based on and what makes it, what the use cases of that community, right? For some groups, WhatsApp can be really effective, but when it comes to having loads of different channel types that have different roles, and not everyone needs to be privy, and you're able to have token-gated channels that give access to holders, you're able to have an elite group, you're able to do certain things with platforms that have features, that then becomes a bonus rather than a issue of too much. I think somebody wrote it in here, the issue is about being able to properly organize it and not have 25 servers and have the few that you're in. I would venture, I want to ask a question before I throw it over to you. How many people are in more than 10 Discords? How about 25? 50? How many people are maxed out on Discords and have to rotate occasionally to join a new one? So we got a couple. Any of you are on Nitro and also maxed out? That guy. That's the guy right there. See, if you had that many servers, how much does that give you? Yell it out? No, the total servers you could join. There you go.
I think I'm on like
That's
10,
great.
and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell's going on.
Right, so you can't possibly be active in 200 Discord servers at once, right? What's that? Yeah, DeFi will be a big one. But you can't possibly be active in that many at once, right? So you have to pick a couple that you're actually going to be active in, and there's one that you just get notifications in. So maybe the solution, right, to the best way to have communication would be to have, there's some that you need to have that hub for, and others that you just need email notifications for. You need to get a newsletter, a summary that just shows up to you. So I want to throw that over to you the best way.
Yeah, I think, and someone said in the chat as well, limit the amount of channels, and not only that, but limit the amount of, like what you were saying, you need a central hub for it. And there's already products being built out there where it's like a funnel, so every announcement that gets sent in a Discord gets sent to your own private dashboard. I think something like that is way more valuable. But Discord also has its place, I think. It just like, for example, a server like this has way too many channels. You need a good onboarding, so you need like one channel at the first step, then you get entered to like a general chat or a marketplace chat, whatever, and then gradually increase the amount of channels. But sorry, but not many, like not like this many. So basically, limit the amount of channels, limit the amount of distraction for new users, and I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I think customization is key. I think we mentioned about bots earlier. Why not utilize that? We see a lot when you join new channels, and I'm thankful that a lot of new Discords are getting away from the old template, like the 100 different channels, and everyone is sick of that. But yeah, as soon as you join a new channel now, and it will tick what you do, if you're an artist, an entrepreneur, so it's already going to be customized towards what you want. One thing that we've done in Crypto School starting from today as well is actually if you want an email newsletter, a lot of people don't want to even use their email because they might not have like a Proton mail, they might not have like their Web3 identity, but I think it's really important for those that don't want to use Discord. They're not going to miss out on any relevant information. A lot of people are afraid of not using Discord, that they're going to miss out on alpha, they're going to miss out on all of these channels, but email newsletter has to still be a backup. There has to be multiple backups, and that's one thing that I would rather read, probably an email newsletter, than go back and scroll an announcement that I'm probably going to miss the information anyway.
Yeah, I would like to say if there's a few people, you have like if you're familiar with Whale.Swoosh, Elena, there's people who are putting out daily just information in easy, digestible content of just giving you an update. Like Elena has her rewind of the day. I get a notification every day. I'm sure you were all on Twitter all day, but in case you missed it, here's what happened on CT today. And it just at this did this, and it's very easy for me to get a rewind on the day. And I have all those be sorted out. If someone were to go and volunteer for a project and just give out a weekly, a daily, a weekly, a bi-monthly, just summary of what's going on in the project, that is, for most people, that would be the best way for them to keep up with it. Because you're not going to be in 200 servers looking at the announcement every day. I mean, if you are, we've got to talk. That would be an issue. We have to figure out a better solution for that. And there are tools. There are tools that exist, but I call them duct tape solutions. I haven't found one that's yet great. It doesn't do everything well. It does certain functions that work, and you could figure it out. But to have a clean UI that pulls in data from Twitter, Telegram, Discord, it transcribes your AMAs and puts it all together into a easy rewind for us. The person who builds that, let me know. I'll sign up. I'll be your first customer. I want to thank Avi. Thank you for coming up. Some rounds of applause. There's a certain word that we hear a lot when we talk about communities and especially servers, and I don't believe they exist, but it's a buzzword, much like everything else. We got blue chips. Don't believe they exist. There's a lot of words we use in Web3, and here's a popular one I'm sure you're all familiar with: DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. I have yet to find a group that is decentralized, autonomous, or organized yet in Web3. And I would love for somebody to prove me wrong. I was considering getting a little table and setting up a side. DAOs don't exist, changed my mind, and just sitting out here in a booth waiting to do that conversation. I just think that it would be a very repetitive conversation throughout the day. So I want to ask, what role do these things that don't exist play to communities, and how do you affect them? Or, by raise of hand, is anybody here a part of a DAO? Yeah. All right, you gotta come on up here, man. All right. You claim to be a part of a DAO. I don't believe they exist. I haven't seen them yet. I haven't seen one that fits the criteria to be called that. I would say a DAO to me is sort of like communism. There's ideas where it worked in theory, but I've never seen it work.
So I get that, and I do agree 99% of DAOs don't really function properly or don't really fulfill their purpose. But I think Niamh's DAO is a great example of the amount of impact they had. Even today, Niamh's DAO has like a $50 million fund that they are ready to, as long as you bring a proposal from them from a point of view of art, from fashion, from technology, from philanthropic work. A while ago, they sponsored about 100 surgeries in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, eye surgeries for a lot of people who had a lot of dysfunction. There was another movement they basically funded, which was basically cleaning up beaches. So I feel like Niamh's DAO is a very great example of using Web3 technology, using that elitist money that you have in this space, who basically are part of this collectible project, and using that money in a more meaningful way that actually has an impact more than any of us are doing in the rest of Web3. With all these PFPs, with all these like GMs and Twitter spaces we are doing, I would argue that Niamh's DAO has had way more impact in Web3 than 99 of projects in this space.
Thank you. Can you introduce yourself for those who don't know you and disclose how much you're being paid by Niamh's DAO?
I'm definitely not being paid by Niamh's DAO, but I'm a huge fan of the project.
How many nouns do you own?
I own just the one, but I love the community. I love what they have built. I love how they've been empowering. I have a friend of mine recently, I'm working on a proposal with him to help him to basically support his music project in the Web3 space. So I think there's a lot of possibility using DAOs in a proper way. DAOs, of course, have a lot of issues because we as humans are not designed to operate in a DAO-like situation. So I think that transition, so I come from I used to be a scientist years ago, and I always say that it's absolutely crazy to me that we don't talk about, when we're talking about decentralization or Web3, that we don't look at it from the spectacle of how the human DNA works. We are wired to always be led by someone. Even when you have a pack of wolves, a wolf leads the rest of the wolves. Does that mean decentralization is not possible? Definitely not. But there's a lot of rewiring of the brain right from the start. You know, when you are 5 years old and you have a fight with the neighbor kid, what do you do the first thing? You go to your parents. You go to a centralized authority to fix your problem. That happens in school. That happens in institutions. So I think DAOs, again, not to stray from the topic, DAOs are still in a very preliminary stage of development. There are a lot of tools, a lot of organizational structures, blueprints that we have to set for us to really use them effectively. But it's interesting to see how they work.
So it's interesting you said that about how a group of people need to have a community, right? I mean, you have the, in a pack of wolves, you have the alpha. Not to be confused with information that's going to definitely not give you financial advice, but it's the leader of the group, right? It's who's going to direct you. Every community has a community manager. I'm sure there's a community manager sitting in this room here. Anybody here, community manager? Anybody runs one? There we go. We got one. there's always a community manager here, right? Because when you run a community, you are directing it, you're cultivating it, you're helping bring people together. I haven't seen a DAO that doesn't have one. There's also when there's an issue with people coming together, who's managing it, who's assigning roles, who's going to make people do something? Why would it compel you to do it if you're not being rewarded? Why would I work for a job if they're not going to pay me? Right? It's the idea of doing it all for us. There's always somebody at the top of the DAO who's making the most money from it. There's always, and they call themselves different names and they rewrite it 1,000 times to make it sound good. But at the end of the day, there's somebody who's going to be taking that bag, and there's somebody who's going to be doing work and getting nothing in the name of a DAO of we do it all together. When it's like, no, you do the work, I take the money, right? So, I mean, are you a part of a DAO?
I'm part of a few DAOs, but I'm not that active, to be honest.
What has been your experience?
I think, to be honest, it's really hard to keep track of everything that's happening. That's one of the reasons why I don't keep track of a lot of DAOs that I mean. Well, they're not that many, but I mean a few. It depends on the level of interest too. So sometimes you buy an asset that is connected to a DAO, but you're not that really involved with that. You buy it because you like some aspect of it, but you're not too interested in the decisions that are being made in the future. You bought because you like the art or something that was happening or whatever the reason is. And I think we come back to one of the previous questions. It's still hard to keep track of everything in Web3. So there's a lot happening and our attention span is like really, really short. So for me, the reasons why I don't think DAOs are there yet, it's because there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of decisions to be made, a lot of voting sessions, so all of that. But to be honest, I think the Nouns DAO is one of the best around, to be honest. It's the Web3 case study of DAOs for me, because it has heart, it has public service, it has a lot of people. I have a question about it though. If a noun didn't sell for dozens of ETH every day, would it be that successful? That's the thing that I don't know. So
I saw a question up there at one point said the biggest expectation people have is when a moon, right? And if the project didn't go up, would you still be a part of it? Would Nouns DAO exist if Nouns dropped down to nothing?
I think this is a very valid question, and I agree with everything that you said. In my personal opinion, I think how DAOs progress will progress very equally of how we adopt decentralization. Because the fundamental of decentralization is also relying on people doing the right thing at the end of the day. Is you not having an authoritative figure to make sure that people are in line, that you don't like scam people, you don't like take advantage of like exactly what you said, one person making all the money. There's like a lot of communication and the social aspect of it when people are not active in DAOs. And I would say this is less about the technology and more about, again, going back to the whole human DNA narrative, is that are we saying that we are wired to always have someone tell us or have someone lead us to do a particular thing? Are we saying that we are only going to do a particular thing if we are benefited more than everyone else? Because if that is a thing, then we have bigger questions to answer about decentralization. Would this exist? Would people not take advantage of decentralization? I do understand it's a very idealistic way of looking at it. I also think decentralization is an idealistic way of looking at it, but I also believe that we should hope. And I also believe that this is what we should strive for, and hopefully one day we can actually get there.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming up. I got a question for everybody up here. Would you prefer decisions in your community to be made by a DAO to have voting? Yes, no? Yes. Depends. So a big question that I had is, when you have your decisions, who's proposing that first proposal, right? It's when you have an option to say, right now, you're participating in this conversation, but you're participating in yes or no, you're voting. When you vote on something, do you have full participation? When you come up to speak and you're able to speak your mind, you are able to really participate in that conversation in a more meaningful way. There is a vote mechanism that exists, and you're able to say yes or no. Oftentimes in a DAO, I found, there's, again, that central authority. It could be a few people, it could be a higher group, there could be it could also be a majority token holder. You have to have X amount of money, where then you don't need to have majority shareholders have issues with governance tokens, how much governance you need in order to make a proposal. In order for it to pass, how many majority do it? How popular are you to be able to get your proposal passed, regardless of whether it's for the good of the DAO or not? So when you're standing here now and I ask you, do you like having a DAO be proposal, and you say yes, well, have you ever had a DAO where you felt you had questions posed where the phrasing of the question didn't make sense, and the vote that you had to make a vote on wasn't, you would want to adjust it, you'd want to speak about it, but you're just given an option to say yes or no or pass, right? Those are your options, but you don't get to actually make that proposal. I own Ape token. I am now part of the Ape DAO. Can I do something with it? Not really. My vote is meaningless. So I have no shade to them. I have that thoughts about, most DAOs, they don't really give much there. So I want to ask, do you feel like is there anybody here who's part of a DAO that feels it gives them value? What DAO would that be?
You're right. I'm in several DAOs, and you're right. And everybody can make a proposal, but your proposal have to have quality. And that's why in the Remix DAO we have this council. We will not say, no, your proposal is no good. No, that's not what we say. We're going to say, your proposal needs a little bit more work, because we don't want to come to those votes that you say, what the fuck am I voting for? The yes, no, pass. Yeah, but what am I voting for? Do I know if I vote yes, what will actually happen? What will happen to the money? Remix DAO only has little money, but we invest it into artists, and people vote on that. And that's what the council is there for, to help people make a better proposal. And once the proposal is good, the proposal goes on to the vote. And people can vote on it. It's a small DAO, so I'm in Ape DAO too, and my vote is worthless also. We just don't have enough money. But in these smaller DAOs, yeah, you actually have a vote.
Thank you. I really appreciate that take. And that's interesting. It comes into the hierarchy of a DAO as well, where you have that council, right? You have that proposal. How do you feel about having a hierarchy in a community?
Yeah, I'll answer that. I think just going a little bit back to what Frank said, because I do agree, I think the issue right now is people don't want to connect their wallets, and that's kind of the only way right now, the way DAOs work. I think that's wrong. I think that's how a lot of people get scammed, and especially those that want to be in the community, they might buy a project just to be involved. At the moment, most DAOs use Snapshot. Who here has used Snapshot? And have you felt comfortable connecting your wallet? Yes or no? Yeah, no. I think it's very, it's kind of risky. Every time you connect your wallet to something new, especially Discord, there's some sort of a lost connection there. It's not a very good confidence strike. So I think that there has to be other ways around this. So whether that's reacting to a role, reacting to a picture, but I do agree most proposals are completely, they don't give you the outcome. They don't give you that after effect. You don't know what will happen. And if you have voted yes and it was the wrong thing to do in the end, then you will feel to blame. So you need to have, I think, a conversation before that proposal. It can't just be random new proposals that anyone can make. It has to be either from the team, or I think it has to be made really well and clear, really precise.
Yeah, I feel like that's similar to what you were saying before, right? About having that layer that like kind of filters out proposals. But I would then argue that you're kind of missing out on the idea of decentralization as well as autonomy, right? And then it just becomes a corporation, except you're not being paid, right? You're missing out on all the things that the first two parts of it. So I want to ask about, to foster the most the best way to foster creativity, right? Here's the question I'll pose. As NFTs continue to evolve and mature, what are some of the best practices and innovative approaches you envision that would enhance engagement and interaction within these communities? You have the voting structures, the platforms, we discussed that. There's a lot of community-led initiatives, we discussed that. What would be the best way to get your community involved, to make them feel like they're part of something, have that sense of belonging?
I personally think, and that's like our main thing we do at FangGang too, is we as the founders and as the team are super involved with the community. And so we have no voting system or anything, but we try to hear as best as possible as to what the community wants from us. And then we kind of merge that with our vision and create the best possible outcome for everyone who's interested in our brand. So I think having a team that really listens to the community, not just say they listen, but they really do it. They're really hands-on, on the floor, in general chat every single day, you know what I mean? I think that is the most effective way to do it.
No, I was about to add that there's also another interesting aspect, which is the customization process. So if you're able to, and it relates to what Junshi was saying, if you're able to somehow dictate what's happening with the assets that are part of the brand, if you can make them more your own, if you can interact with the artists, with the devs, and well, share your vision, share your needs, and have a saying in what's happening. It doesn't need to be through a DAO, you know? If you're active, if you're close to your community, you can understand that. We're basically, project teams are basically the engine of the community. You know, the community shares their needs, shares what they want to see, what they want to get, and we are the ones that should make it happen. So the aspect where you can, I don't know, customize your PFP, for instance. That's just a tiny detail, but something like that, you know, and your community is able to have a saying on what's happening next, and the team is able to make it happen. For me, that's one of the most interesting aspects, and it's not rocket science, you know, but it's something simple, but sometimes the simpler things are not the easiest ones to implement.
Yeah, I think that's really cool to have the user-generated content. You've seen Sappy Seals, Pudgy Penguins. You've seen Kid Called Beast having, customized GMs and customized posts you're able to do with your assets.
We're doing it, so not just Sappy Seals.
Yeah,
But
of course.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying there's a lot of communities aware of that right now, and it's been happening for over a year now. There's a lot of UGC content, UGC being created, and UGC for me is the best form of creating culture. You know, when you're creating a brand, you're not if you're creating a solid brand, you're not marketing to your community. You're creating culture for them, with them. You know, so if the community creates culture with you, they'll stick around. They'll be the brand will be as strong as its community.
I love that. That's a huge factor to be able to really participate by sharing that. And when you make that your whole brand, we've seen a few accounts that really took their asset and they're able to use that to build their brand, and it's part of their banner and the color scheme they use. Their full branding is all around their IP, and they're able to, that makes them feel more connected. And the more that you have based around that profile picture and around that community, the more you're going to be involved in it and help share it. So if you want to give your take on that.
Yeah, like even when we were talking about DAOs, I work for Crypto Skulls DAO and definitely agree with how difficult it is to get people comfortable with joining the community and wanting to be part of that. I think the main struggle right now for what a lot of communities have primarily is how active people can be when they first join a community versus how they are now in the hard times. Most people, even though they still have the asset, they don't have time because they more than likely have 100 new assets or they've collected 1,000 new NFTs. So how can you keep people active? It's nearly impossible to do that. So the only way is to keep growing new people and encouraging people to become interested in that. And it's really the most difficult thing to do. I work a lot with what I call historical NFT projects. So before 2021 would be my definition. And they are the most, even though they could have thousands of holders, it's impossible to keep them wanting, because they're more interested in hype projects. They're more interested in just storing that asset and keeping it there long term. So they don't see the need, they don't see the necessity to be active. But right now, the only way that a community grows is because of the community. It's not because of the founders, of how active they are. I think founders can disappear and the project can take over because of the community. And I love to see that. I love to see that happening in Web3. Something that happened to me recently, and I probably shouldn't say this because it's recorded, but I will say it anyway. I work with different Web3 projects, and one was finding it really difficult at the moment to get funding. Royalties are gone because of a lovely marketplace, and a lot of people have lost jobs because of it. And I lost a few clients because of it. So I got let go. The community actually rehired me and said, there's no more project if she's gone. And that would never have happened in a real, like a Web 2 job. So that is the beauty of Web 3. It's the beauty that the founders can leave and the community can control what goes next, what comes next. And that doesn't have to be necessarily to do with DAOs. That can be just to do with how it's run, how the show runs. And it's just depending on activity levels of the community. So that would be my take.
Yeah, and we're going to wrap it up here, but I do want to comment on that last point you said. Retention is probably the most difficult thing to do. Maintain relevancy. There's very few people that we've seen manage to maintain relevancy. You look at music artists, I think Eminem is a case study for projects. So look at someone who managed to evolve for decade after decade as culture shift, as people change, and still maintain relevancy to keep your core community members, your original fans, and then adapt to new ones and adapt to the times and still be fresh and hip. So that's really incredible. So that's, I think that would be the last thing, is to maintain relevancy is the most difficult thing. But if you strive to do that and continue to innovate, you'll be able to achieve great heights. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.